Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole van der Hoeven, and we have a sort of last minute live stream because this was the only time that Marcus and I had in common in the next few weeks. So, welcome, Marcus. Marcus Olsson is a friend of mine that is also a member of the Obsidian community.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. So excited.
Yeah, it's super cool to have you back because I feel like we've done this before in our other jobs.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, the audience might not know that we were actually worked together in the past. Uh,
Yeah. We have the had the exact same position, and we spoke. We weren't regularly involved in projects together, but we definitely started to talk about work at first, and then very quickly about Obsidian. If I remember, our last few chats were all about Obsidian, weren't they?
yeah, I mean, I used to look at your vault, and because I was just getting started with Obsidian when I started working alongside you, and it was just so much to learn, and your videos were so great in just getting into it and exploring all these plugins that were available. So I definitely learned a lot. You kind of kickstarted me into the Obsidian world.
Oh, wow. That's a nice way of putting it. I think the members of my team are like, oh no, she's talking about
Not
Obsidian again.
again.
Yeah, I've developed quite a reputation. But anyway, we work together at Grafana Labs. Can you talk a bit about what you were doing, what we were doing there?
Yeah, so I was a developer advocate at Grafana Labs for 3 years, almost to the day, which was a lot of fun. I worked in the plugin development team, so we developed a plugin platform for Grafana. Maybe I should talk a little bit about what Grafana is, just briefly.
Yeah.
It's a monitoring tool for if you want insights in, for example, how your application works, how much traffic that is coming to your website, and just getting really beautiful graphs and charts about how your systems are doing. So for IT monitoring, essentially. And uh, you could extend that tool with plugins, so you could build your own plugin for it, and you can introduce more visualizations, more connected to multiple data sources outside of Grafana. And I worked with the community to figure out what we could do better. I wrote code examples on how to build plugins. I worked very closely with the engineering team to figure out what we can do to our APIs to improve them, documentation, tutorials, anything to really help the community of plugin developers.
Yeah, I think that background is actually super relevant because in many ways you're very much following that same model because I feel like Grafana is this way to visualize things, but what you're visualizing isn't really it doesn't really dictate what that has to be. It could be monitoring data, metrics, logs, traces, that kind of thing. But like a lot of people have done some very interesting things. I know Marcus, you've even done one for a budgeting app that we both use, YNAB. But there have been people who have like managed to play Doom on them. And
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, I feel like Obsidian Projects, we were talking about this earlier, is like that. It's like this visualization layer.
Yeah, for sure. You're taking something, that potentially could be visualized and presented and, displayed in many different ways. And I think the aspect that I really loved was you build this product or service, and you have this idea of how you'd like people to use it, but then you also offer a plugin platform that let people build their own stuff on top of it, and suddenly they're inventing things that you didn't think was possible. So I definitely see that in both the Grafana community, but also the Obsidian community. And I think that was what got me hooked.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier also to piggyback on an existing tool than to build an entire application yourself. If I want to build, in this case, a project management app, then I can just piggyback on Obsidian, which already has all these features, and I can just build and add the features that I'm missing. So it's
Yeah.
kind of
So
a
maybe
fast track.
tell us what projects is and why you even started creating it.
Yeah, so I submitted Obsidian projects for this year's Obsidian October, and it was a lot of fun building it. And it really came about when, I mean, both of us, we've been working on, producing content in both in the sense of blog posts, videos, tutorials, guides, and a lot of good stuff that we want to publish on a regular basis. And sometimes that means that you're working on multiple types of content at the same time, but they're going to be published in a regular interval. Let's say every Tuesday, I want to release a new blog post, for example. And you want to kind of keep track of that. And I was using Obsidian to write all this stuff in, but keeping track of when I wanted to publish it. When is this blog post due? And how far along am I? And if I have another idea for another blog post, how do I keep track of that? And I ended up with this, folder with a bunch of drafts. And then I was using Front Matter to keep track of, the status of them. Sometimes I would remember to add a date for when I hope to publish this, but it was very unstructured, and I wish I had a way to visualize this a little better. And I'm a huge fan of the Kanban plugin. I've been using it almost since day one, since I started using Obsidian. And it's really great for tracking progress and where I'm at in kind of the, and from idea to a finished thing. But I also wanted to see it in kind of a calendar view. And there's plugins for that as well. There's the fantasy calendar. I think there's one called Big Calendar as well. And a lot of great plugins for that. But to use it, I would have to change my notes, add some Front Matter properties that were specific to those plugins. And, some didn't even work. And I would have to create a duplicate note and copy paste content from one to another just to have that, both calendar view, both a board view, and then eventually also a table view where I can just see everything at once. And quickly changing from one to another, it was just not possible. I was very inspired by you actually made a video on a content calendar, which was exactly what I wanted. But yeah, it just wasn't possible with the kind of the views were there, but the interoperability was kind of lacking.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I started with Projects, which is a project management plugin, which takes a little bit of all of these, but ties them all together so that you can quickly switch between them. And I think the core of this is that they all use a kind of a unified data format. So the views don't actually have to parse all the notes themselves. You parse the notes once, and then you provide that data format to all the views. So we're gonna see that in action.
Yeah. Do you want to switch to that now?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Great. Jumping into the demo.
Cool. Let's do it. So this is an empty vault. I'll prove it to you. There's nothing in here so far. And I have the plugin enable. I can show it. It's called Projects. And you'll see it. It's by me. And the first thing that you can do is you can press this button in the ribbon to open the projects view, or you can use the show projects command to open it as well. Let's do that for now. So the first time you open this, you don't have a project yet. And you either can create a new project from scratch, or you can create kind of a demo project that creates a preset, a folder structure with notes that kind of demonstrates the format and what you can do with it. So I'm actually going to do that now. I'm going to try the demo project. And so you see that it created this folder with a bunch of notes. And in these notes, we can look at them. They have, it's a regular note with YAML front matter, which has things like what status it has, and it's in the backlog right now. Is it published? Some tags and cool stuff like that. And when I switch to the projects view here, let's hide the file explorer. You immediately see this table view, which lays out the name of the notes, but also all the kind of structured data from the note itself. So we had the status field, the date, the published, and you can see here that it actually parses the notes based on what type of data it's in there. So published is a Boolean value, either it's true or false, and so it displays that as this kind of switch here. And it has support for many different types, and that's kind of the one of the views. So the real powerful thing here is that projects really there's really two parts to it. One is the querying part of actually taking the notes and filtering and querying the data that you want to bring into your project. So that could be all your blog drafts, for example. It could be the scripts for your next YouTube video, if you have a folder that does that. And you can switch between different projects up here. Indeed, you can create a new one. Let's do that. Let's create one for our YouTube channel, so where we might have scripts for our videos. And you can, so for example, select where the project, if you want the subfolder to be included. For example, right now we can just select the root of your vault. You can, if you want to include subfolders, and let's create a new project. Right now, you don't have much, but we can see that we can switch back and forth. And so the idea here is that, let's say that you have multiple projects you're working on. Maybe you're working for multiple clients, and you can work on several different folders as well. So that's kind of the first aspect to that, to bring the notes that you kind of work on at the same time, your context, and parse the data from those notes and make it available to each view. So that's kind of the first part to it. Obviously, then you have the views, where you've already seen the table view. You can have a board view, which essentially takes the same data, it just presents it in a different way. And here, for example, you can choose what YAML property you want to use for determining what status it's in. So if I choose name here, then you would have a column per name. Obviously, this is not very useful, but I just want to prove that it doesn't have to say status. You can choose which one makes sense to you. Let's switch back to the status. In this case, you can also choose if you want to prioritize your notes or not. We can disable that, and you see that it went away there. So I'm just going to continue through the views, and then we can talk about the differences between them.
Yeah.
And so the next one is the calendar one. And this is, it's a calendar. I'm sure you've used one in the past. But the cool thing with this one is that you can see your notes in there. So in this case, you have a note here where the plugin extracts a bunch of date fields. So we can go back to the table, and we can see that there's this due column here that has been parsed as a date. And you can use that, you can select it here, and it's actually smart enough to see that there's only one date field in your project here. And in this case, we've also selected another property to display kind of a checkbox in here. So I can check this, and I can go back to the table view, and I can see that's indeed been published here. And obviously these are synced with each other, so you can choose the view that makes sense for your kind of context that you're working in. And if you click any of these notes, then you pop into this edit view where you can change any of these settings. And what's not as obvious is that if you press and hold Command or Control, then you actually open the file as well. So this is a feature that a lot of people ask for, and turns out it's already been implemented. So there you go. And yeah, what else here? Yeah, it's pretty limited right now, but I hope to expand on it in the future. And finally, the gallery view. It's a grid where you can select a field here that has an image. And those are the 4 built-in views that are available right now when you install it. And obviously, I'm hoping to add more, but I think these 4 is a great start to kind of get started with project management. And the really cool thing about this is that in the end, it's just notes, Markdown with front matter. The plugin does not add any configuration to your notes. And in fact, this is a very important thing that we'll get back to, which I think is very important, that I don't want to add potential clutter to my Markdown notes. I want the plugin to be smart enough to detect what's already there and use already established patterns and use cases. So
so we have a comment here from Fermin Rodriguez, who said that apparently, totally coincidentally, there's another YouTuber named Sniffer Labs who published a video about Obsidian Projects. I'm just having a look at it now. It's in Spanish.
I did not know about that.
Yeah, me either. And it's called Visualiza la base de datos como en Notion dentro de Obsidian. So visualizing the database like Notion in Obsidian. So that's kind of
awesome.
cool.
The first thing I'll do after this talk is go watch that one.
Yeah. So Danny Hatcher had a question that Paul Rush also +1'd. Can you drag and drop notes to change metadata? And Paul adds that this is particularly helpful for the Kanban board.
Yes, totally. Drag and drop functionality is a bit limited right now. What you can do is that you can drag and drop views, for example. And I believe the other drag and drop you can do is that you can sort these columns. But currently, you cannot sort cards, for example, inside the board. It is coming. It is a planned feature. It's definitely something that has to be there. I just personally haven't been working that much with the drag and drop before, so I'm doing some research and making sure that I do it in the proper way. So it is coming. But yes, of course, with calendar as well, drag and dropping this from day to day would also be very useful.
Yeah, I believe that there's a plugin called Meta Edit that has that as an option. There's there's a section in the settings called Kanban Helper or something like that, where when you change it from one to the other, it also updates the status.
Yeah, and so one thing, for example, you can do is if you add a note, if you click the add note in one of these columns, then you'll see that it actually adds that note with the correct metadata. So the feature is somewhat there. I think that what is being referred to, but the drag and drop is definitely coming. But and same thing in calendar. If you double click a day, and then it shows up on that day. So that's definitely the idea. But drag and drop is definitely coming.
So maybe let's also talk a bit more about your design philosophy. I Want to Be Me When I Grow Up, great name, says, I loved reading your philosophy on the development and how you don't want to add anything unnecessary to the notes.
Yeah, and So I've been kind of drafting these guiding principles, which is available in the README on the GitHub project. And one of them is leave no trace, because I am a little purist when it comes to Markdown. And it's not just that. I feel like if I'm building a plugin for to be used at work, first of all, it needs to be really reliable, which is another of the principle. But the other aspect is that I'm likely going to share these notes with my teammates potentially. If we're working on it together, maybe we're sharing a Dropbox, or what you may have. Maybe it's a GitHub repository, and I don't want to enforce, and push a lot of these YAML front matter properties on top of that. And of course, that means that the configuration needs to happen somewhere, but instead I'm choosing to add that to the configuration for the project's plugin instead. So it's hidden in the background, but the configuration is still saved there. But it doesn't. You should not. It should not be obvious when you look at the notes that you're using this plugin. Obviously, it does not apply in the opposite direction. So the plugin should, and it's not quite there yet, but it should be able to parse multiple formats from other plugins. So let's say that you have a plugin that you configure with a certain property, then there's nothing stopping this plugin from parsing that. But this plugin should not leave any footprints. It can integrate with other footprints, but it should not add any of its own.
This is why I really wanted to mention the whole Grafana connection, because I'm really seeing the parallels here. Because I feel like Grafana is a visualization tool, but where it takes its data, it doesn't really matter. It's from different sources. It could be Prometheus, it could be K6, it could be many different tools, even your like IoT devices, and they're all going to the same place and just being rendered in different ways. And it feels like Obsidian Projects is like not exactly about the views really, but it's about the capability of bringing different sources into the same kind of platform and having and being able to tie in different plugins. So I'm super excited for a future where some of my favorite plugins are views on your plugin.
It's funny you should say that, because it's something that I am planning, and it was something that I was planning from the actual start. Is the fact of the matter is, looking at this, you have 4 views. I certainly won't be able to on my own compete with, and I don't even want to compete with other plugins on this matter. Like obviously the board view in projects won't have the same amount of features as the current Kanban board view or plugin that's already available, and same thing with the calendar plugins. They're going to be so much more focused on delivering a great calendar experience, which I'm certainly not going to be able to offer. And instead, from the get-go, being able to integrate those as views is something that I'm hoping to do. And it's something I'm currently working on, where any plugin out there can kind of register itself as a view, and it can receive the same data data from that project. So if you selected a folder that you want to use all these notes in the folder, and let's say that you want to filter out a few of them, you want to create some maybe derived or computed fields, and then the project plugins then sends that final data over to that plugin, so they don't actually need to know where the data comes from, like you were saying with multiple data sources. And in fact, you can configure a project with both front matter properties and Dataview, so you can create Dataview projects here. And the beauty is that the views do not need to know how it got that data. So my hope and dream is that eventually more and more plugins will register themselves as custom views, and reuse that presentation, that beautiful view they already have, but just integrate it with the data provided by projects. It's certainly high ambition, but I am working with a couple of plugin developers already to get this happening. And if you are interested in integrating your plugin with projects, then reach out to me, and I'd be happy to walk you through how to do it.
Maybe I can share that too, actually, because I've been, you told me that it was coming and I've been checking it out eagerly. So maybe I'll show it too. Now that I think about it, maybe I should just delete this and start from scratch, because if you've been watching this channel, maybe you already know that I made a video about my Kickstarter database, and I had a list of projects. Kickstarters I've backed. So this is the old way that I was doing it. So I've got like my pending Dataview query here. And the cool thing for me is that I can, so I just copied that for later, but I'm going to start a new one. And let's say I exited out of that. I'm just hitting Command P and then projects to show projects. Maybe I'll make this a bit bigger. Oh, it's on this one. Oops. Okay. And so I went to projects. I don't have that project here yet. So I'm going to go new project, and I'll put crowdfunding projects. And then I think I put it for this one under Kickstarter. So then I'll leave this, but normally I would add, well, actually I might as well just add that as well. So oh, it's coming up in my other window. That's weird.
Oh yeah,
Because I'm showing
yeah.
I'm showing it
I've
in
had it
the
reported that if you use multiple windows, that the drop down shows up in a different one.
yeah.
Not quite sure if that's a plugin issue or if that's Obsidian, but there is an issue on that.
Yeah, okay. So let me just move it into the same one then. Let me add that again, just so you could see everything. Crowdfunding projects. There, that's better. All the stuff, they're all coming out here now.
Yeah.
Kickstarter, MD, and I'm going to create the project. You don't need to see my side pane. Okay, so this is bringing in everything because I didn't specify which fields I want. But what I really want to do is, since I already have the Dataview query for it, I'm going to take Dataview, and I'm just going to paste it right there. So it already has the same fields that I was already looking at. I'll click Save. And that adjusted everything. So it's only the fields that I was looking at. And if we open up that thing again, it actually looks quite similar. Except that the links, hey, by the way, Marcus, how do I get those links to render?
Yeah, I think regular Markdown links is not supported. Internal links is supported though, but that's I don't think I have an issue on regular Markdown links. So I will definitely get on top of that.
Cool. Yeah, so it's just really awesome that it's just plug and play, because you didn't have to recreate Dataview. You're just working well with it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's the idea, that the views don't have to worry about it. The project's plugin handles it for them.
Yeah. So now this is just a table, but if I want another view, I'll add that. And I definitely will want, let's say a board with a status. This is just the name. That's not, I haven't selected the field yet. So this is what Marcus was talking about, that a gotcha here is that you might expect that it automatically picks up the status, but it won't know until you actually select it. So you have to go and select which field. And that's when it separates it out depending on the status. But in this case, I had only, I filtered out some of the other ones, like I think the fulfilled one. Yeah, and status is not equal to fulfilled. So this is how I'm filtering right now through Dataview. By the way, is that something I think you mentioned in our talk earlier, that you do want to eventually be able to filter stuff out?
I do,
through
definitely.
the UI?
Yes. So I have an open issue, and it's likely the next one I'm going to work on, which is like a kind of a search box or filter box that kind of applies the filtering before the data gets sent to the view. So let's say that you're building a custom view, then the filtering will be applied before that viewer receives that data, which is, I think, going to be really cool to see. But yeah, so the idea is to be able to filter on specific fields, and yeah, it's coming.
Great. This is all about me asking for the things that I want.
You got it.
No. New view here. I also want to do the calendar because this was fun to see that this just worked. So I'll say fulfillment, add the view. And then, so I have to select the expected date normally, but it's already selected because that was actually the only date that I had. I'm going to go to month. And I've got these ones here. So I wasn't really sure. Usually these Kickstarters, they just say like October 2022. So I just put it all in one. So to show you what that looks like this one is a Blade Runner RPG, and I put it here. Oh no, wait, that's just the date. I put date expected. And that this is the one that it's taking. So part of my Dataview query was to take date expected and treat it as expected. That's why it's expected that's showing up here. This is really cool because this means that this just worked. I didn't have to change anything. Just like you said, I had this format already. This was what I used to create this view. So it's so cool that it just works out of the box.
I'm glad. I can do one comment here that I'm getting questions about, and that is if you're using Dataview to specify your project and the notes that should be included, you cannot actually update any of the fields. And the reason is because what you show that you can actually alias these fields. And that means that the project plugin don't actually know, because it's making a Dataview query, and then the result that comes back has the alias. So currently, I have no way of knowing the original name of that properties, which means that I cannot update or change it. So I think if you click one of these, for example, the calendar events, I'm not sure if
this one.
No, in the calendar.
Within it. Okay.
I'm not sure if anything actually pops up. Yeah. So this is what happens, and the reason is that you cannot edit any of these fields.
Yeah. Well, I think
just a heads up.
That's good to know. Yeah, I did change some things in the Dataview query. I mean, honestly, just the fact that it still works is already really great.
And it's something that I, at some point, hope to reach out to the Dataview team to add some support for this, like a original field, for example. And if I could get that, I could update the original one.
Yeah. I also want to share another project. This is for the One Ring. I'm in a campaign for the One Ring. It's a role-playing game. We've had 3 sessions so far, and I wanted to see how I can use this plugin not for projects at all, because I know you love it when I do things like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
But this one, Marcus actually talked to me earlier. I got it working. So this is also a Dataview query, I believe. Yeah. So I'm saying which fields they are. I don't know. I didn't really need it in this case. I guess I needed it for this filter. I only wanted the session ones. I guess I'm still just more comfortable with Dataview than having to hide the fields here.
Right.
But anyway, so let me open up one of these things to show you how that looks. All of the front matter were parameters that I already had. So I didn't have anything that I needed to change except for the cover. So I added, Marcus and I were just troubleshooting a bit, and this is the format that I needed to have, cover, and then know just the file name of the file that I want to show for this. So not in quotes or not in brackets. But once that happens, look, I was able to create a gallery view. So this really opens up the possibilities. This could be sessions. These could be pictures of characters, non-player characters and characters. They could be pictures of places. There's so much that you could do, really. So this is really awesome.
Yeah,
It's
I just before this talk, I saw a tweet about a someone who's using the plugin for their blog posts,
oops.
and they showed a beautiful gallery view with all the kind of the cover art for their blog posts, which is looked really cool. So I think that, is it me or you that got stuck?
I think it was me.
Okay, there you go.
I
Welcome
wasn't sure
back.
either. Yeah, I'm sorry. I missed what you were saying.
Yeah, so I was just mentioning that I just saw a tweet from someone who's using the gallery view to display the cover art for all their blog posts, which it was an
Oh,
absolutely
nice.
beautiful view.
Yeah. So I'm just modifying one now so that,
Yeah,
oh, oops, no codes. I forgot.
and this is an example of what I was mentioning, that even though I don't want to leave any trace from my plugin, I do want to be able to parse different types of formats. So I will definitely add, because a lot of people, they actually guess that it should be like an internal link, and there's nothing that's stopping the plugin from parsing it, as well. So I definitely will update it to support that format as well.
Yeah, it's because a few, for me anyway, a few things like for the this one, I had the art being pulled in. Um, Let me show you. So I have this stuff, which actually Leah told me about. It's embedding the art and token of different sessions and different characters, and it requires it in a specific format. And then, for example, this banner that I have here, this is done with quotes and an exclamation point and the links. So yeah, I see what you mean. That it's it's hard to cater for all of those things.
Yeah, but I definitely think that it's a format that the project's plugin could support. So there's not an issue on it right now, but if no one's creating it as we speak, then I will definitely create one after this.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the use cases for this.
Mhm.
Obviously, with the name, it's really well suited to project management, whether that's like a content calendar where each project is like a piece of content, or tasks. It could be tasks as well if there's something that has to be on the calendar. Oh, one thing that we didn't talk about is how in the calendar view you can add a check.
Mhm.
Or did you mention that?
I mentioned it briefly. Yeah,
Right.
you can get a little checkbox next to your calendar event.
Yeah. And then you can see within the calendar whether something has been done or published or whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah.
And then I think it could also be, I'm sure you didn't think of it in this way for this use case, but I think it would be great for RPG management.
I'm sure. I am not. I do love playing role playing games, but I'm not as deep in it. I don't use Obsidian for it. So I'm very curious to
What?
see. Yes, I know. I'm also not a dungeon master. I just show up and enjoy the game. But I'm very excited to see what people build with it. I built this because of a need that I had myself, which was building a content calendar. Uh, I was mainly inspired by tools like Airtable, ClickUp, Trello,
Mm.
these tools that have these different types of views for each perspective that you want to have, and they're all aimed towards project management. But what's beautiful here is that we have a very vast and varied community doing all sorts of cool things. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what people do with it. And that's not just projects.
So, are there things that you would like to incorporate into this? I mean, no commitments or deadlines or anything.
Uh, like I was mentioning before, the my main ambition is to get more plugins to be able to register them as views inside the projects plugin. And if we can do that, I think this could turn into something very beautiful. Um, that if you want to build a plugin that to show data or nodes in a certain way, you don't actually have to handle all the indexing, event handling and all that sort of good stuff in the backend, but you just get a readily parsed data format for your view. So actually, what was beautiful to me, it was I originally had the table, board, and calendar views, and then I got someone asked for a gallery view, and I implemented one in I think less than 30 minutes, simply because I already had the data,
Wow.
and I essentially had to create a CSS grid in a with just pure HTML, and it was up and running. And I think that's the power of letting each view focus on presentation rather than data processing. I would love, because it's something that I would personally like to have, sort of a timeline view, so I can see things that's have like a duration, maybe over this quarter, for example, or months, and kind of see what is going on in parallel. And so that is a view that I would like to add, but it's not going to be prioritized anytime soon, mainly because I want to enable other views from the community. That's kind of my main focus right now. I have many ideas of where to take this. I have, since every view kind of looks at this data format. They do, like I said early on, they don't know where the data comes from. So we could add stuff like filtering, and we could do like roll-ups where we can select a field and then aggregate that into some sum, or a unique values, or whatever you may have. And the views don't need to care. They just process the data they get, even if it's actual YAML front matter properties or just derived properties.
So
So, for
let's
example, you could take, for example, if you want to, let's say that you have a property that is due date, or a starting date, and then you have a property with duration, and then you can add the duration to that start date to generate a new end date, for example, that is a
yeah.
date field, but it doesn't exist in the original node. So I think those could be interesting things to experiment with.
We have a question here from Benjamin Covington. How
Okay.
should we reach out? I think this was in reference to other plugin developers integrating with your plugin.
So I'm pretty much, so you can reach out to me on Twitter and GitHub and Discord. And my username is my first and last name in lowercase, no spaces, no hyphens or anything. So Marcus with a C, Olsson, Olsson. So just add me on the social media where you are most familiar with, I guess.
I also put a link to your Twitter in the description on YouTube.
Thank you very much.
Also, Benjamin also wants to know, is there any chance for JavaScript support as well in queries?
So I would love to expand on that. I would love to know what you mean. Like, what would you like in JavaScript? So is that what we talked about, potentially, transforming fields and creating them from just pure logic in JavaScript?
He
That
can
would be
correct me. He can correct
okay.
me if I'm wrong, but I think that he means like here, instead of Dataview, to be able to use Dataview JS. Or should that work
Oh,
already?
okay. That is not supported right now.
Okay.
Um, I I have to admit, I don't use Dataview myself. I should be
So
ashamed at this
shocking.
point. I
No, not
know.
don't
Uh,
be ashamed.
but so if you have specific Dataview features that you would like to see, feel free to create an issue and explain, how you would expect to use them. Um, and yeah, if you have knowledge of the Dataview API, please check out the Dataview issues. I try to label them as well as I can, and if you see anything that you could potentially help out with, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Danny also asks, can you show tasks in the view, or is it just notes?
I think what Danny refers to here is actually extracting tasks from the node content. And right now, only front matter and anything data view can return. Again, I'm not that familiar with it,
Which
but
data view can return tasks, but
yes,
it's
but
not a table. It's
no, exactly.
it's a task
So
one.
only table queries are supported right now. Um, I yeah, I think it's certainly possible. I think it's mostly like a UX thing about how do we actually present it. Is it a new field type? I would say that the one of the absolute main challenges with this plugin is that it kind of needs to, when it reads the notes and extracts data from the notes, it needs to detect what type we're dealing with, right? So if I see that I have published colon true in one note, but then I have published colon 5 in another note, then the plugin is going to detect it as a number and a Boolean. And when you present it, it needs to pick one over the other. And so in this case, what should tasks be? Is it a field type altogether? Or is it, I know there is a feature request of having like a more rich text field type where you can do embeds. So you can do like a data view embed and then get the HTML in a cell, for example. So there's a feature request on that. But in this case, I don't think it's not a technical thing implementation wise. It's more like how does it, how do we integrate it in the UI? And it's certainly something that's, I'm super passionate about great UX. So if I ever say no in one of the GitHub issues, it's most likely because I don't know if this how to integrate this, from a usability standpoint. Certainly, anything is possible from a technical standpoint most of the time, but does it make sense for the end user? I really hope to cater to anyone and not just power users. I want this to be clear to understand and for anyone to just pick up and use without having to read a manual. And so that is why it might make the feature request I get on GitHub might make sense, but I don't know how to implement it UX or usability wise. Just a
So
comment on that.
would you mind if I listed a few plugins that I would love to see as views?
Oh, I will bounce them right back to the people watching the stream.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
do it.
But if we don't mention it, it won't happen. I would love
Mhm.
to see Excalibrain in here.
Oh, I
Like
haven't tried that
if I
one out
could,
yet.
yeah, let me show you that. So I always have like in my side panel here, there's always an Excalidraw view here. Right now it's picking up one of my notes here. So let me
Mhm.
choose this one. So now it like automatically adjusts. It would be cool if I could have a query and then have only those things in the query shown in Excalidraw, in
Mm,
Excalibrain, sorry.
yeah.
So it could be like another thing here, like show how these things are linked. And it doesn't really make sense in the context of like Kickstarter projects, but like in an RPG campaign, it would be nice to see those connections. Another thing is tracker. I talked to you about this already, but just to show other people, it would be really cool to also have like a tracker view. So something like this showing up in the one of the views here.
That would be really cool. Just a comment on if any of the plugin developers are actually watching this. Essentially, what needs to happen in your plugin is that you implement a method in your plugin class, and that will register a kind of a project view. And what you will get is an HTML element, and then you get a callback whenever new data is available. So if you just update that HTML element whenever new data becomes available with whenever the user switches to project or whenever they filter out notes. If you just update the view, that HTML element with those new data, then you can integrate your plugin in projects. So reach out to me.
Yeah. And also, you mentioned a timeline. I don't know if you were looking specifically at the timeline plugin.
I did not know there was one.
Here's an
Even
example.
better. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So this is also, a lot of my examples are RPG related.
Man, I should
So
do
this
these live
is what
streams
it
more
looks like.
often because I
Yeah.
learn about all these new great plugins.
So I have these tags. It's just timeline, and this is FR for Forgotten Realms because this was an older campaign. And that adds it to this timeline. So this is also just identifying it based on that. And yeah, so this is by date of those events. So that's really cool. And each of these are notes that I can go to. Some of them are empty. I just made them for the events. But you
Sounds
can
like a
have
perfect fit.
pictures as well. Yeah, I think so too. Because I do use folders for my RPGs, for my games.
Yeah. I think the what I had in mind was more like a Gantt chart, like more
Yeah,
horizontal, where you can overlapping tasks, for example. But this is beautiful as well. I would love to see it.
yeah. And then there's also the gallery plugin, which I would love to see updated. Spaced repetition, maybe.
Oh, interesting. Would love to know how it would work. Space, like I'm
Yeah,
aware of it. I just don't see the integration in front of me.
this is how it looks like. You could set this, so you could technically make it inline front matter. I chose to make it 3. Oh, completely. Yeah, I didn't even think about it, but you are Swedish.
I am
So,
Swedish. This
yeah,
makes.
jag heter Nicole.
Hur gammal är du?
Don't expect me to be able to speak fluently. That was like a month ago,
Uh,
and I've already forgotten a lot of it.
that's totally fine.
But yeah, I think it would be cool to be able to set, because this is in a spaced repetition folder for me. So it would be
Mm,
nice to also just have a tab where, like, here are all the notes I have on Swedish, but also here's like a spaced repetition thing. So
mm,
there's an actual plugin for that if I can um, do that. So review flashcards from all notes, and then you can go through each one.
mm. Oh,
I don't know,
interesting.
maybe it's a little out there.
Yeah.
Also long
If
form.
long again, new to me, man. I feel embarrassed not knowing all these great plugins, but there are
There's
so
so
many.
many.
I wish there
Yeah.
was. I mean, the Obsidian Roundup newsletter is great, but I tend to miss it every now and then. But there is a lot of plugins coming out, especially from Obsidian October.
Yeah. So long form is something I've not used in practice. I have it set up, but there's not much to show that I would want to show because it's for writing long form content, so books basically. And so long form is a way to split things into scenes so that they're more manageable. It's like scenes and multiple scenes in a chapter, multiple chapters in a book, that kind of thing.
Mm. The kind of the data format that projects is using is, imagine like actually imagine the table view. So what you have is a what I call a record with an ID, which is the path of the note, and then all the data is attached to that ID, that path. So anything that kind of uses notes as and this, I actually have a feature request to support projects within a note, so you can use one note and keep your entire project in there. I don't think it will happen first, because I think that Obsidian being note first, and I think it makes more sense to actually double down on notes as records. But also, it would violate that leave no trace principle, because then I would have to figure out a format for defining projects within a Markdown note. So
Hmm.
any plugin that is using notes as a unit of some sort would make very good sense in this project.
Oh, look who's here as well in the chat. This is Sniffer Labs, whose video we were just talking about. Sniffer Labs, estábamos hablando de tu video antes. He's the Spanish video creator that made the video on your plugin. He also said, when will the integration with database folder be available for everyone?
Yeah, so the author has been we've been working very closely to get this working, and they've been instrumental in working out the API and how to do this. So if you're watching this, I'm super grateful for all the feedback that you've been given me. I don't know if they've set a date for it yet, but I know that it's working pretty well at this point, based
Yeah.
on what I've seen. I don't think that it will support the full API from get-go, but we're definitely going to be working on implementing and making it, native feeling, and so in some sense.
Benjamin says there are also Gantt views using Mermaid, which are pretty pull.
Yeah, I would love to see like a mermaid kind of mermaid view as well. I don't know if you, I definitely, for example, for Grafana, if I just get a reference in there, we had these plugins that were using Mermaid. It's called a diagram plugin that were reference for one of the boxes inside the Mermaid diagram. You can reference a field in the data format. So whenever that updated, it would update in that box as well. So you could potentially do something like that, where you have a mermaid graph or diagram, and then every box or circle references a field in the data format, and you could do pretty neat stuff with that.
He updated it. He meant already used by other plugins.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So if I just can like ask if you know any plugin that would make sense to be integrated with projects, please let me know, and let the plugin
Let the
authors know
developers
as
know.
well.
Yeah.
To reach out to me. Be
I
happy
know
to help.
your secret plan is to not have to maintain all of those separate views yourself.
You
So,
got me.
Marcus, I am curious because I like to ask people what their top 3 favorite plugins are, like if they could only use those 3. But I think it would be more interesting to say, what are the ones that you use most often? Not the ones that are like important but you use every now and then, but like the ones that you use all the time.
I would say the calendar plugin, definitely. Okay, I'm gonna group periodic notes and calendar because to me, they're one and the same.
Yeah.
I just love using them together. Quick add is absolutely, it makes
Yes.
everything so much easier. And finally, I would say the Kanban plugin. again, I've been
Mm.
using it since day one. I'm still using it, and it's just such a great and well thought out plugin. Um, I wish I had like a more exotic plugin in there.
No, I didn't want the exotic ones. I wanted the ones you actually use all
Like
the
the
time.
staples. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was thinking that for me it would be outliner because I use bullets a lot and I don't like to have to cut and copy. I like to be able to plug in to move bullets.
Mm,
Then I'd say Dataview and Excalibrate. I think those are the ones I use the most.
I'll need to check them out.
So just to close up here, how can people find you, or is there anything that you'd like to plug for how people can support you?
Yeah. So again, Marcus Olsson on pretty much every platform out there. And yeah, you'll add it to the description as well. Uh, I have a maybe we can add it to the description as well. I have a GitHub project board, ironically, where I try to label issues as well as I can, so that it's easy to follow along. There is a project board where you can see what's in the roadmap. There's also labels for things like where I can't reproduce this, or I just don't know enough to tell whether this is a good idea or not, which can be extremely frustrating for the person asking, since I just don't know if it makes sense because I don't know the problem very well. So if you agree with a feature request, or if you don't, if you disagree with a feature that it shouldn't be in there, please comment and let me know whether something makes sense or not. It's one of the questions that I struggle with the most is, and I would argue the most open source maintainers will agree, that saying no is so hard when you're reading this feature request and it makes total sense. It's like, I really want to see this, but I'm not sure if we can pull it off. And getting help from the community on these issues and just building up a case for them is extremely helpful. And also reproducing bugs, and yeah, just there of course, if you know how to code, there are issues out there that you can just pick. Let me know if you want to work on something. I'd be happy to walk you through. I would even hop on a call with you and guide you through the code base if you're interested in contributing code. But it's definitely not the only way to contribute to the project. But check out the project board, see if anything interests you in any form, and yeah.
I'll also mention that Marcus has a buy me a coffee. If you'd like to give him a coffee for his awesome work, this is not his first plugin. He's worked on Obsidian Veil, Obsidian Pipe Tricks. He has a theme, an Obsidian theme called Creature, and Obsidian Projects is the latest one. And probably most importantly, the plugin development guide is invaluable and nothing else like it exists. And Marcus just creates that because he loves Obsidian. He's also been doing the Obsidian talks on the Obsidian YouTube channel. And those have been really informative as well. But I wanted to plug you because you didn't plug any of the things that you were doing. Come on, Marcus.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm being modest here.
Yeah, that's why I will be immodest for you. That's okay. I think you are an awesome contributor to the Obsidian community. So I'm super glad that you're also my friend and that you agreed to come on my channel here.
Of course, happy to
Thank you
come
so
back
much.
anytime.
Great. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.